So going back to the beginning, when did the acting bug first bite you?
I think when I was younger, I used to just love. Well, I used to love watching funny things on TV or film. I'm from quite a funny family, so my sister and I, and my brother, we used to do kind of silly voices and things as we were growing up. So I've always loved making people laugh. And then when I got to high school, I loved doing drama as a lesson. My mum was actually an English and a drama teacher. She never taught me, but she worked at the same school I went to. So in the weekend, I used to go and watch the school plays rehearse. And it was the same feeling of, if you ever had school trips and teachers used to be wearing jeans outside of school, you'd be like, whoa. It'd give me that feeling of like, what is this world? All these older kids, rehearsing these plays. And I suppose that was when I first got the bug. And then I used to do kind of improv classes after school at this place in the little village where I'm from. And again, it was kind of making people laugh initially, which was the thing. But when I realized that you could do it for a job and somebody said, why don't you audition to drama school, then I was really hooked. And then yeah, when I was 18, I went down to London. I'm from Yorkshire, up in the north of England, and went down to London to train at a place called Rose Bruford, and it kind of started from there, really. Yeah.
It's amazing. Yeah, it's often some kind of influence like that, like through family or school or friends, and then
Yeah,
that's
or a
it. Like
teacher or something like that. Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah.
And once you get bit, I mean, either the bite goes away or it gets deeper and deeper, and next thing you know, that's your life. And
That's so
thankfully,
true.
it is.
Yeah, thankfully. And also, nearly 17 years on, I still can't believe I get to say that it's my life. So many of my super talented friends that I trained with, it didn't work out in that way and they're off doing other things and extremely happy and everything. But yeah, I do feel very, very lucky looking around and seeing I'm still getting a chance to work this far on. Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, it's a very few. When you look at the numbers, it's like
Yes, I
a
know.
fraction of a fraction of a fraction of a percent. So it's like, it's kind of the lottery, which is
It really is.
pretty
Yeah, it definitely
fantastic.
is. Yeah.
And then when you work on a show like Baby Reindeer, that after you said 17 years, now has probably just really exploded this, the reach you're going to have and the opportunities you're going to have. It's like, okay, so, it only takes 17 years to get up there, but now explosion, it's like the big time, just got to be pretty
Well,
awesome.
who knows? I'm not sure. Yeah, I don't know. I think that I've been really lucky, actually. I was looking back, somebody asked me to do a little bit of a timeline of, little highlights from jobs I've done. And I've been so lucky. I've been with the same agent actually since I graduated. And he was saying the other day, looking back, there's loads there, but it is great. There's something when something like this comes along that is a big hit and everyone's seen it. It does mean that you are suddenly kind of catapulted into this next level, like you say. But I don't
Mhm.
know what will be next. Hopefully, more exciting projects. But again, I've said it before. I don't really mind if nothing comes of it, just because I'm so proud of Martha and this job. Genuinely, I feel like it's such a great thing to be part of.
Well, on
Might
behalf of
have
the
to wait
fans,
another
we do
17
hope
years.
something more comes out of it. You
Oh,
deserve
thank
it,
you so
and
much.
I think I think not only the industry but the fans are going to be really happy to bring you into their homes and their televisions and their movie screens. So,
Oh, thank
um,
you. That's lovely too.
so how did you first hear about the show, and how did you first get involved?
So I first heard about Richard actually first. I went to see his show, Monkey See, Monkey Do, which is a one-man show similarly to Baby Reindeer, but it was detailing what happened to him in episode 4 of the show. And he was on a treadmill for quite a lot of it. And I just remember thinking, gosh, what a brave kind of storyteller he was. And then I was kind of fascinated by what would he would do next. And the next thing he did was Baby Reindeer. And I tried to get tickets actually, but it was sold out fully in London and in Edinburgh. So I bought the play text to read just because I was quite fascinated. And then, yeah, about 4 years later, the audition came through. So I'd already heard of
Oh
Baby
wow!
Reindeer, so I knew what it was. And I was like, oh my gosh, if this is what I think it is, then this is pretty exciting. And then,
So
yeah,
just
we,
by
we did
chance it came through? I'm sorry.
well, the casting director Nina Gold I've worked with before, and I think she thought of me, and I think Richard also might have had me amongst others in mind to kind of come forward for it. Obviously, such an unusual character. I think they met with such a wide array of different types of people just to try and find the right fit, chemistry wise and dynamic wise, just so that everyone was happy. So I went in all in all about 4 or 5 times over the space of a few months. And then yeah, the call came through that I'd finally worn them down and they were going to go with me.
And what part of Martha did you explore during that audition or auditions?
Oh, so some really interesting scenes. The cafe scene initially, and then the scene where she talks about wanting to unzip him and took herself away inside. That was actually quite an interesting one because I remember when I got the scene, I actually thought that was really romantic. I thought that was a really romantic scene because obviously also she sings to him and he sings back. And then I was running lines with a friend of mine, and she was like, "Oh my God, the scene is terrifying." And that was the first kind of little clue I had that I maybe saw inside the character a little bit more than others did, because I think they saw how she might be received, whereas I was like, this is a lovely thing to say to somebody. You know, she wants to snuggle away inside someone all winter. That's lovely. But obviously, from the receiving end of that, it might not be received in the same way. So that was quite funny. And
Yeah.
that, yeah, we did that scene, and we also did towards the end of the process a little bit more of the scenes. For example, the one with Terry, when Martha catches Donnie and Terry on a date together in the pub, just to kind of try and see if we could get that aspect of her right as well. Yeah.
And she's a very conflicting character because, like you say, the words and the smile on her face and everything is like, oh, harmless. And then you dig a little bit behind the mask, and oh wait, this is a kind of a damaged person who has so much more going on. And it's so I'm curious, to play her, you really had to understand her. What did that entail? Like, how did you get into her head?
I mean, not to give Richard all the credit, but it genuinely was there in the script for me. When I read that final voice message at the end, I just kind of it tapped into something that made me kind of understand her and what he meant to her, especially. And then I tried to kind of track back along the scenes and just work out ways in which she might be able to inflate or over imagine or go home and mull over little moments they had together. From my backstory in terms of the character, all I had really was the script. I wasn't doing an impersonation of anyone. So I would go and imagine how she would feel like on those days after the pub if they'd had a flirty exchange or a flirty encounter. Obviously, we then find out what she was doing later is going home and emailing him, constantly. But I would like to kind of imagine her almost daydreaming about what next could happen. And quite often, which is quite an interesting thing with Donnie and Martha, is he was being quite flirty back, or he was paying her compliments, paying her attention. He goes to the cafe with her to have a coffee, which in her narrative is absolutely massive. In his, it's an act of kindness and he feels sorry for her. But for her, she's like, oh, we're on a date, here we go. And so I would kind of try and track those moments where in her world, it felt like they were getting closer and closer together. And I think that kind of was the key to her, really, her link to him, her connection to him, her protectiveness of him and their relationship. And that's how I got in. And then, like I say, yeah, that final voice message as well was also so important in understanding her too.
Yeah, and their relationship is very complex, and you kind of touched upon it. But I'm wondering, like, as we get a little deeper into it, what they gain from each other, because it seems like they each have a void, and they're filling that void in different ways. And I'm like, is it addiction on both ends in a way? Is it, needing to kind of do some self-healing, I guess?
Yeah, self-healing I think is a really interesting thing. And I think also the story would be a different story if Richard hadn't very bravely included what happened to him in episode 4. I think there's a sense of lostness to him, and the fact that he feels like maybe he's a bit invisible. And at the time when Martha arrives, I think she might feel the same. And so I think it's these kind of two lost souls who bump into each other and feel seen in very different ways. He flirts with her, and my narrative was always like, how many people do that in her life? How much banter does she genuinely have that feels as genuine as it does with him? How
Mhm.
seen does she feel? Does she kind of go along in life feeling a little bit invisible? I sometimes used to get that impression occasionally that he is one of the only few people that properly talks to her and learns about her and spends time with her. And so that's why he's so special and important. And then from his point of view as well, I think it's similar. He's been overlooked a lot in his career, comedically and everything that happened to him in episode 4. And so suddenly there's this woman who says he's got manly hands and a handsome jaw and she can't get enough of him. And I think that is a very flattering feeling. So I think they both kind of needed each other in a way. And then obviously things get far more complicated and much more involved than they should have done. But I think in that initial kind of connection, the timing was right for the two of them. Yeah.
Yeah, it's amazing, when you're talking about it, and it makes me think about, how invisible people feel at times. And not even people who are, kind of outcasts or people who've been shunned or whatever it is, but everybody. And it's those moments of kindness that pull you back in. But if there's such a big space between them, or you never get that, and you finally do,
How
like her
important they are.
interpretation.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's so true. Someone asked the other day, if he didn't offer the cup of tea, do you think she would have even noticed him? And I was like, that's such a great question because I actually don't know. I think it's the
Yeah.
kindness of that act. Somebody feeling sorry for her, somebody saying, listen, it's on the house. I'd be interested to track back how often that happened. And I think it's very rare for her. Yeah. And that's actually quite
Yeah.
moving if you think about it. So if somebody is
Mhm.
like, oh God, you need to give Peter Pan his moisturizer back, for her, that's literally like the best thing she's ever heard. So I think, I think it's a really interesting, angle to think about Martha's invisibility and maybe her sense of injustice in a sense. This through line of her talking about being a lawyer. We think as a viewer it's a lie, and then when he sees her degree on the fridge, and you think, oh, okay. So there's also a sense of a life that could have been with her, maybe a life that
Mhm.
could have been lived, and maybe she feels a bit entitled to perform as that person because she feels like maybe she didn't have a chance to.
And a part of that was nurtured. If she had,
Mm.
that caring word, or a smile in the right direction at the right time, or, sometimes a thank you or a show of appreciation, maybe this would never have happened. We wouldn't be seeing this story,
Absolutely.
so.
Yeah, and I always think about that moment in the cafe when he says, what do you want? And she says, I want the Scotch broth. I'm just trying to figure out if it's on the menu or not. I used to always think that was something she'd prepared to say. What can I say to him tomorrow when I get to the cafe? She's dressed up,
Hmm.
put makeup on, and actually when he says no, she's like, I thought that might happen. But he says it might be on the specials. That's better than even anything she could have improvised herself. So it's exactly like you say, not only is this quite rare, but it's with somebody who's funny and charming and she sees as this incredible guy. And actually, oh my God, even better line. And then when he, sings back to her the love song, even though he's going to do the joke about Hitler being misunderstood, she's getting even more than she would have ever imagined. So I think that's definitely true. I think these little initial connections meant that it became the way it did. Yeah.
You have a very unique and a very strong chemistry with Richard. What was it like working with him?
Yeah, I feel like we've got such a strong connection now because of everything. I mean, it was 2 years ago, really, when the whole audition process started. So it's been a long time that we've been in each other's lives. And as Martha, I would kind of study him and watch his facial expressions. So I feel like I kind of know him, not in a creepy way, hopefully, but I feel like I know him especially well. And obviously, along all of this amazing kind of aftermath of being able to talk about it with him and learn his side of things, I feel like we're getting even closer. I've done a few things that have been based on true stories before, and I definitely think there's a sense of responsibility to those people involved, and I absolutely felt a sense of responsibility to Richard in doing this story justice. It's all told through Donnie's point of view, but I wanted to kind of capture that initial feeling when I first read those scripts and really try and show how complicated and honest he's been in telling his story. So yeah, I feel like we're really close. So I'm really proud of him as well. I kind of hate the word proud, like I've had anything to do with it, but proud of his performance, especially in episode 4. I think it was so brave of him to go through all that. Yeah.
I mean, you do affect it, even if you're not there on set, if it's not the episode about you, it's like, you being able to portray the character that he put in the words and on the script is what drives him to act. It's like you react to things, and that's part of, the internalization, I think, of his life. And, so, I don't know, I sound like a bad shrink here.
No.
Um, So Martha goes from incredibly sweet to fits of rage in seconds. Like, how difficult was for you as an actress to flip that switch?
Oh gosh, yeah. I mean, it's hard to get into those kind of more angry spaces, but again, I would just kind of go back to that protectiveness she felt over Donnie and seeing Terry with him. It was really interesting as well, actually, once I got to meet Nava because she's so brill. And I think I'd always imagined that scene to be quite casual on her part. But when we started to do so Nava and I met to do the stunt rehearsal first and foremost for the fight scene. And so when I saw her perform it with such confidence and kind of ownership herself over Donnie, I was like, oh, that's brilliant because Martha will be furious at that. Like I didn't imagine it to be so kind of provocative from her end too, in a great way. And so it is funny when you do those things because your body doesn't really know you're pretending. So the adrenaline you feel after is quite high. And then after that scene, when Martha attacks Terry, there's also the section where Donnie bustles me out of the pub. And actually, I have
Mhm.
to say that day we filmed that, I think they've used the first take that Richard did because he was in the zone with that moment. He just absolutely let rip, and I just was blown away. I think we even actually missed our mark, so it's slightly off skew whiff because it was just so powerful with how he was performing it. So yeah, those scenes are very charged, and but the room's always very respectful and mindful that it might be a quite intense environment. Yeah.
Well, I was just going to say it's a very intense show at times, and like especially that last episode, you're just watching a man sit at a bar, listen to uh, the kind of confessions of
Yeah.
this woman who's had this really difficult relationship with. Uh, can you get into that a little bit? That scene, but also what does that get into your head? Does it take a toll on you because you're really like it's this inner feelings of this woman that are not the most wonderful.
Yes, some of them absolutely aren't, and like you touched on earlier, I definitely think this is a show about characters who've been through traumas and things in their past that have made them who they are and how they are today. So I think that there's lots of those voice messages that were quite tough to record, but at the same time, there's a bit of space for me for that. I recorded some temporary tracks for Richard to listen to or for them to play out for those scenes if it was useful to have them to play when they were filming still. And then obviously in ADR, which was about 6 months later, we recorded all of the actual recordings. And that final voiceover actually was the last thing we recorded together in ADR. And both of us got quite emotional really because I think it felt like the end of a really, long and complicated process, but it was a nice way to kind of finish it all. That voicemail especially is very moving, I think, for both of us. But then also that the court scene actually was my final filming scene. And that weirdly crept up on me more than I thought it would. Because I think in the moment when, Martha pleads guilty in the court and they have this kind of look across the room from each other, again, I think that kind of ties with the theme of the show, this idea of these two lost strangers who just
Mhm.
kind of connected at this strange time in their life. So yeah, it was
Well,
those fine. I mean, yeah, like you say, I'm not really in those last few episodes as much. It's more of a soundtrack of Donnie's life, but it feels like she saves him in moments in those complimentary emails that he reaches, voicemail, sorry, that he reaches for. They calm him in a way and soothe him. So I think it's a fascinating example of how deep he got in exploring what happened after. Yeah,
I'm just gonna with it just a couple of real quick ones.
yeah,
Martha's
sure.
laugh is infectious. Is that your laugh, or did you create that laugh? Or
It's kind of like a heightened version of my laugh, which I maybe should have thought about in hindsight. But yeah, I'm in a show coming out shortly called The Outlaws, and I realise I do that same laugh in there as well. So that'll be a treat for when I watch back. But no, I yeah, it is kind of a heightened version. I wanted to try and make it as genuine as possible, so it didn't feel like a kind of parody of anything or a heightened scary laugh. It's just my laugh, but bigger, I guess. Yeah.
I mean, it's that moment of joy that she finds. It's like probably
Yeah,
the
loves,
real
yeah,
unlocking, and
bursts
like it
out.
comes out big and strong. It's wonderful.
Absolutely, yeah, absolutely.
And we'll close out with a really easy one. Well, hopefully easy. 3 words to describe Martha.
Oh my gosh. Oh my gosh, 3 words to describe Martha. Endearing. I find her endearing. Um, um, Complicated and actually cute. I think she's quite cute at times.
I love it.
Yeah.
Well, thank you so much for your time today. I really enjoyed it. I was amazed how much, the roller coaster ride it takes you on and the emotional, how much it hits you. And when that show ends, it doesn't disappear. It's just like, it's one of those things that pops up in my head every once in a while. And I still
Yeah.
think
Oh,
about it.
that's
I'm
so
like,
great.
which does not happen often. Sometimes, a lot of
No.
times you're done, you turn it off next, but
Yeah.
this one resonates. So thank you so
Oh,
much for your
that's
time
great
today
to hear.
and
No, it's
best of
so
luck going
nice to talk
forward.
to you.